These are the visible differences between a $50 tie and a $500 tie that you can actually spot without being a menswear expert. What you will discover might change how you think about that strip of silk hanging in your closet and why luxury menswear accessories command such premium prices. Let's start with the most obvious difference you can see the moment someone walks into a room: the knot. A cheap tie simply cannot hold a proper knot. The fabric is too thin, too lifeless, and it lacks the weight needed to create that perfect dimple beneath the knot that signals quality. When you tie a $50 tie, you will notice the knot loses its shape throughout the day, becoming loose and sloppy. But a $500 tie? That knot stays crisp from morning until night, maintaining its form because of the superior silk density and construction underneath. This brings us to one of the most critical factors that separate expensive ties from cheap ones: silk quality. Not all silk is created equal, despite what department store marketing might suggest. Most silk today starts as raw material from China, but here is where things get interesting. The processing makes all the difference. Quality silks from Italy's Como region, produced by mills like Mantero and Ratti, or England's Macclesfield, cost 15 to 20 times more than the same weight of Chinese processed silk. The silk grading system tells this story in numbers. Silk gets graded according to the International Silk Grading Standard, with grade A being the highest quality. But even grade A has subdivisions: 6A, 5A, 4A, 3A, 2A, and A. Grade 6A mulberry silk represents the pinnacle, characterized by its pearly white color and fibers that can literally stretch for a mile without breaking. This is the silk used in Hermes scarves and the finest luxury ties. When you are holding a tie made from grade 6A silk, you are feeling material that costs more per yard than some people spend on an entire outfit. The density of this silk is measured in something called mommy weight, essentially the weight of 100 yards of silk, 45 inches wide, measured in pounds. High-quality ties typically use silk in the 14 to 16 mommy range. Cheap ties often use silk as light as 8 or 9 mommy, which explains why they feel insubstantial in your hands. For luxury ties, you will also encounter specialized silks like grenadine silk, which creates a distinctive textured weave that is particularly prized in fine neckwear. But silk quality is just the beginning. The real craftsmanship shows in the construction, and this is where you can literally see the difference with your own eyes. Look at the edges of a quality tie. They are perfectly rounded and smooth, creating clean lines that speak to hand finishing. A machine-made tie will have sharper, more angular edges that lack the subtle curves of handwork. Pattern alignment reveals another telltale sign. On a high-quality striped tie, those diagonal stripes are exactly parallel to the tip of the tie. This requires careful planning and precise cutting. Cheap ties often show misaligned patterns, where stripes meet at odd angles or do not flow properly from the wide end to the narrow end. It is a detail most people will not consciously notice, but it creates an overall impression of cheapness that the subconscious mind picks up immediately. The way a tie drapes is perhaps the most dramatic visible difference. Hang a $50 tie and a $500 tie side by side, and the contrast is striking. The expensive tie falls naturally, with gentle curves and a fluid appearance. The cheap tie hangs stiffly, often twisting or curling at the edges. This drape quality comes from the interlining, the hidden foundation inside every tie that gives it structure and weight. Here is something fascinating. The interlining in expensive ties is not necessarily thicker. If a tie feels unusually thick, it is probably cheap polyester padding trying to fake quality. Premium ties use natural fiber interlinings like cotton or wool that provide just the right amount of structure without bulk. When you tie these ties, they create beautiful natural folds and maintain their shape without fighting against you. Self-tipping is another quality marker that catches the trained eye. That means the small triangular tip of the tie is made from the same fabric as the main fabric of the body, rather than from a different, cheaper material. It is more expensive to produce because it requires more of the premium silk, but the visual impact is unmistakable. When someone wearing a self-tipped tie adjusts their jacket, that flash of perfectly matched fabric at the tip signals serious attention to detail. The difference becomes even more pronounced when you examine the construction methods. Most ties use what is called three-fold construction, where the silk is folded 3 times and sewn together. Luxury ties often use 7-fold construction, a technique that requires 2 to 3 times more silk and takes over 3 hours to complete by hand. To put this in perspective, a machine can cut and sew a standard tie in seconds, while a 7-fold tie requires 3.5 hours of skilled craftsmanship. This construction method creates what many consider the finest tie human hands can produce. The additional silk gives the tie substantial weight and drape, while the hand sewing ensures every stitch is perfectly placed. When you handle a 7-fold tie, you immediately feel the difference. It has luxurious heft, falls beautifully when draped, and ties with almost effortless elegance. The manufacturing centers themselves tell a story of quality. The most respected tie companies source their silk from 2 legendary locations: Como, Italy, and Macclesfield, England. Macclesfield, located roughly 25 kilometers from Manchester, has been the heart of English silk printing since the mid-16th century. This town was once the world's largest silk producer, and the expertise accumulated over centuries shows in every yard of fabric produced there. Macclesfield is particularly renowned for its ancient madder silk, prized by connoisseurs for its rich, complex colors and distinctive 3-dimensional effects. Como represents the Italian approach to silk excellence. This region has perfected the art of silk weaving and dyeing, creating fabrics with unmatched richness and depth of color. When you see a tie with that unmistakable Italian silk luster, that deep, complex shine that seems to glow from within, you are looking at centuries of refined craftsmanship. The visual impact of quality extends to the smallest details. Handmade ties feature a slip stitch at the wide end with a visible loop of thread. Many people mistakenly think this is a flaw and try to cut it off, but this thread is actually a sign of quality construction. It is called a keeper loop, and removing it can cause the entire tie to unravel. This small detail represents the difference between machine precision and human craftsmanship. Color saturation provides another visual clue. Cheap ties often use lower quality dyes that fade quickly or lack depth. The colors appear flat and lifeless, especially under different lighting conditions. Premium ties use superior dyes that create rich, complex colors with subtle variations that make the fabric seem alive. When light hits an expensive tie, you see depth and nuance that simply are not present in cheaper alternatives. The shine factor tells its own story. Cheap silk has a harsh, artificial shine that screams synthetic processing. Quality silk has what textile experts call a hand, a natural luster that is warm and inviting rather than cold and plastic-looking. This difference is immediately apparent when 2 ties are placed side by side under good lighting. Even the way ties age reveals their quality. A $50 tie shows wear quickly. The fabric loses its body, develops permanent wrinkles, and the colors begin to fade after just a few wears. The knot area becomes permanently stretched, and the tip starts to curl. A $500 tie, by contrast, actually improves with age. The silk develops a patina, becoming even more supple and more beautiful over time. The superior construction means it maintains its shape and drape for years, even decades. Brand heritage adds another layer to this quality discussion. Houses like E. Marinella, founded in Naples in 1914, and Charvet Paris, established in 1838 as the world's oldest shirt maker, represent centuries of tie-making expertise. Their craftspeople have been perfecting these techniques for generations, creating ties that are genuinely heirloom quality. When you purchase from such houses, you are not just buying silk and thread, you are buying accumulated knowledge and refined technique that cannot be replicated in a factory. The modern necktie itself has an interesting origin story that speaks to this tradition of craftsmanship. While cloth around men's necks dates back to Roman times around 101 BC, the modern tie was perfected by Jesse Langsdorff, who filed a patent on April 12, 1922. His innovation involved cutting the fabric on what is called a bias cut, meaning the fabric is cut diagonally rather than straight with the grain, which prevents bunching and creates the smooth drape we associate with quality ties today. Bias cutting, refined over more than a century, remains the foundation of every well-made tie. There is also what experts call the twist test. After you untie a tie, let it hang from the narrow end. If the tie twists more than 90 degrees, it is almost certainly made with cheap tube construction rather than proper bias cutting. This simple test can instantly reveal whether you are holding quality craftsmanship or factory production. The time investment alone tells the quality story. A handmade tie typically requires about 30 minutes to create, with every step carefully executed by skilled hands. Machine-made ties get cut and sewn in seconds, with no human judgment or adjustment possible. When you consider that some luxury ties take 3.5 hours to complete, you begin to understand why they command premium prices. The thread count in a silk tie is staggering, approximately 245,000 feet of individual silk thread, enough to cross the Golden Gate Bridge almost 60 times. When this thread is of the highest quality and woven with centuries of expertise, the resulting fabric becomes something truly special. Even the packaging reflects the attention to detail. Hermes ties come in their iconic orange gift boxes, with each tie carefully folded and presented as the luxury object it truly is. This is not just marketing, it is an acknowledgement that these ties represent serious craftsmanship worthy of special treatment. The pricing reflects these quality differences in stark terms. The tie bar offers decent ties from $18 to $35. 7-fold luxury ties from brands like Borelli, Marinella, and Kiton range from $150 to $300 each. Hermes ties command $195 to $240, depending on the silk or cashmere content. At the extreme end, vintage Hermes ties on first dibs can reach over $1,600, though they average around $232. But here is the crucial question: is the difference worth it? For many buyers, absolutely. The visual impact alone justifies the investment. When you wear a truly exceptional tie, people notice. They may not consciously identify what makes it special, but they recognize quality when they see it. The tie holds its knot perfectly, drapes beautifully, and adds an unmistakable touch of elegance to any outfit. The sustainability angle becomes increasingly important. A handmade luxury tie is essentially a lifetime purchase. While you might replace several cheap ties over the years, one exceptional tie can last decades and actually improve with age. From an environmental perspective, investing in quality reduces waste and supports traditional craftsmanship that might otherwise disappear. However, there is legitimate debate about diminishing returns. Some experienced buyers argue that the jump from $50 to $150 is more noticeable than the leap from $150 to $500. At some point, you are paying for brand prestige and exclusivity rather than dramatically improved function. The 7-fold construction that commands premium prices has its skeptics too. Some experts consider the emphasis on fold count to be marketing manipulation, comparing it to razor companies adding more and more blades when a quality single blade might perform better. A well-made 3-fold tie can be just as beautiful and functional as its 7-fold cousin. What is undeniable is that quality differences exist, and they are visible to the trained eye. The question becomes whether those differences matter for your lifestyle and wardrobe needs. If you wear ties regularly for important occasions, the investment in quality pays dividends in appearance, durability, and confidence. If you wear ties rarely, the functional differences may not justify the cost. The tie market continues evolving, with heritage brands like Hermes raising prices twice in 2025, while smaller artisan makers gain recognition for preserving traditional techniques. Ancient madder silk from Macclesfield has found new appreciation among menswear enthusiasts for its rich colors and three-dimensional effects, and it is available only from a handful of specialized mills. Looking at these differences side by side, the drape, the knot quality, the pattern alignment, the edge finishing, the color depth, the construction time, the material cost, and the heritage behind each piece make the gap between a $50 tie and a $500 tie clear. Whether that gap justifies the price difference depends entirely on your priorities, your budget, and your appreciation for craftsmanship. But one thing is certain. Once you have experienced the weight, drape, and presence of a truly exceptional tie, cheap alternatives feel exactly like what they are: compromises in materials, construction, and visual impact. The difference is not just in price tags or brand names. It is woven into every thread, visible in every detail, and apparent to anyone who knows how to look.